it's Rachel. Piper's at her mom's for the weekend, so tonight's vlog is just me. I had several people ask me about how in my first vlog I mentioned that Lydia is my miracle baby and she had to spend some time in the NICU, and they wanted to know more about that. So I thought tonight I would tell you guys Lydia's story. So I actually have a condition called PCOS, and that affects your fertility. It makes it hard for you to be able to get pregnant. So for a long time I thought I may not even ever have children. So the fact that I even got pregnant was a miracle in itself. And then she was actually born early. My due date was April 25th. And on April 1st, April Fool's Day, I woke up that morning and I was bleeding really heavily and I was scared to death. I thought I had lost her. I immediately called Josh, Josh, come here, oh my God, I'm bleeding. And he said, baby, that's not a funny prank for April Fool's Day. I said, I'm not pranking you, I wouldn't do that, I'm bleeding. And there was so much blood. And we rushed to the hospital, which is 40 minutes away, and I'm trying not to cry. We rushed to the hospital 40 minutes away. The whole time I'm still bleeding very heavily. We get to the hospital and we find out that Piper's not allowed on that unit because they don't let children under 12 up there. So Josh actually had to wait downstairs with Piper while her mom picked her up, and I had to go up by myself. So I was up there, scared to death by myself. And they found her heartbeat right away. So I was so relieved immediately that to know she was still alive. So they told me what happened is I had what's called a placenta abruption. And basically that means that the placenta is tearing away from the uterus wall, and it's dangerous for both the mother and the baby when that happens. So they admitted me, and they told me I was having contractions, but I had no idea. I didn't even feel them. They were about 5 minutes apart. And so Josh came up, and they said they wanted to wait to induce my labor until I was at 37 weeks, which was just a few days away, because the baby's lungs are still developing at the 36-week mark, and they wanted to give her more time in the womb to develop more. And so we were in the hospital for several days, and they induced me finally. They give you this medicine that makes you go into labor. And prior to that, during my pregnancy, I had a great pregnancy, except for that I became anemic. I had to get iron transfusions several times, where they hook you up to an IV and they give you iron by IV. It takes about 3 hours each time, and I had to do that several different times because I was so anemic. I've had gastric bypass surgery, and so I wasn't able to absorb iron like I needed to, so they had to do that. And my iron was still low when I actually gave birth. I had to get a blood transfusion during that. So we are at the hospital, they induced me, and it takes several hours for the medicine to finally take effect. And then finally I'm dilated enough to where I can start pushing, and that was on April 5th, the day that she was born. And the nurse came in and said, okay, start pushing, and we'll probably have a baby maybe in the next hour. And because some women push for a long time, I'm not one of those women apparently, because I start pushing, and just literally within like a couple minutes she says, whoa, okay, you're about to have this baby right now. I need to get the doctor in here. So she calls the doctor. He was just right up the hall in another room just a few doors up, and she's like, she's about to have the baby, I need you in here now. And so I keep pushing like she's telling me to do, and next thing I know, Lydia's out. The doctor's not even in the room, and the nurse delivered the baby. When Lydia first came out, she didn't have a strong cry. It was just like, ah. And most babies are screaming when they're born. So I knew right away something wasn't right. And I started to panic. I looked at Josh so scared, and I began praying. And the doctor came in, and then this whole team of people came in. And she wasn't breathing. They had to do CPR. And I look over and I see them doing little chest compressions on her tiny little body. And they had to intubate her, which is put a breathing machine in her so she could breathe. It was breathing for her. And that was so scary. I prayed and prayed, and they took her to the NICU, and the doctor told me what he believes happened is she came out so quickly that it was a shock to her body. She didn't learn how to, she didn't have time to figure out how to breathe on her own because she just came so quickly. He told me later that I literally pushed for 5 minutes and she was out. So she was in the NICU for about 10 days. They were afraid of brain swelling because of her not breathing in the beginning, and so they had to put her on what's called a cooling blanket, and it kept her at 93 degrees Celsius, I want to say. It's really cold for a baby. It was so cold that we couldn't even really touch her until she got off, because touching her would hurt her. Her skin was sensitive because she was so cold. We didn't even get to hold her for the first time until 3 days after she was born. And there's a video that's about to play of the very first time that Josh and I got to hold her. It was really emotional because for 3 days we just had this baby that we could only look at and we couldn't touch and couldn't hold and love on. And it was so scary of a time. The NICU nurses were amazing. The doctors were wonderful. She also had an EEG monitor on her head to make sure that she was not having seizures, and she wasn't, thank God. And she was also hooked up to several other different things. There was a IV in her belly button and all sorts of things. But she ended up coming home, and she is doing fabulous. We have a developmental specialist that comes to our house about once a week to make sure she's meeting all her milestones, and she is. Some of them she's even meeting them early. So that's why Lydia is our miracle baby. She's a fighter, and we're so fortunate that she's here, and it's been amazing. It was really hard at first and really scary at first, but it's also just a blessing to see her fight, and that she was able to be strong enough to come through that. And she's an incredible, amazing baby. So I hope you enjoy these photos and these videos that we're about to play.
Look at me, I'm breathing all by myself. I'm breathing all by myself. You're doing so good, sweetheart. You're doing so good. I knew you could do it. Look at you breathing all by yourself. I knew you could. You're doing so good. I bet you're so much more comfortable now. Yes.
Yeah, that's how mine are. But this week they're eating.
at you. Your hair is so big.
Is it dark?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
looks dark through there.
And it's curly.
It's curly.
No.
Want her that way?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you did. I feel like you did. I feel like
I'm just gonna put these under your. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I think this will be okay.
There.
You know what? I'm gonna tape this to her.
Let me go.
Or tape it to her blanket. You're okay, Mama. We're just gonna tape this. Sorry, Daddy. Hey. Hey, baby. Oh. Hey, sweetheart.
Yeah, just a little bit, please.
Hey, Lydia.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you.
Hey, Lydia.
Yeah.
Oh, baby. Oh. Hey, sweet girl. Hey, sweetie. Hey.
That's a better shot there. She just went to sleep on it.
She's like so comfortable.
She's so precious, baby.
I can't wait for you to hold her. It feels so good to be able to hold her. Hey, baby. This is your last day here in the NICU. We are about to take you home.